These are some of my thoughts on the first chapter in Genesis. So I'm going to read from the JPS translation and then give my commentary. When God began to create heaven and earth, the earth being unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep and a wind from God sweeping over the water. So it starts off with God, but God is random and unformed. He's not yet defined as a character as what he's going to do. And that it is deep thinking to call it unformed, to call the idea of God undefined yet or unformed. Maybe even it would be void to call God anything at this part in the story. And then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So there is a deepness as thereabouts, and God is there. So pretty much the idea that there's a deepness that it's there that's the deepness, because in here he said there was light, and there being thereabouts, being kind of a statement of where something is. That's a kind of deep thinking too, and the deepness, and there is the deepness of before, saying that God is not yet formed in our description of him, because this is just at the start of the book. And so the thereabouts, where God is, or where the light is, or where anything is, it can be expanded. And so God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, a first day. God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the water, that it may separate water from water." So what you're going to see is that this idea of there, the whereabouts, can be expanded. And so not just can be expanded, but that expansion can be expanded. And finally, one more time, and so God called the expanse sky, and there was evening and there was morning, a second day. God said, "Let the water below the sky be gathered into one area, that the dry land may appear." And so pretty much the idea of the sky, that is what it is, and the there-ness, that which is now in the sky, and what is said is the sky, because God says something will be, and it is God who makes it be just by his saying. So what God lets happen is his saying. The letting happen is dryness, in a sense, because God said, "Let the water below the sky be gathered into one area, that the dry land may appear." So the dryness is from that saying, from the uttering of God, and it was so. And so the dryness becomes so, as if to say, "So it is, and it is thus." So the so idea is related to the earth, for something to be coming to existence, that it is so. The earth will be formed. God called the dry land earth, the rocks, and the gathering of the waters he called the seas. And so the earth is limited by its seas, which are formed by God around its rockiness. And so from there on you get the vegetation. But I just wanted to kind of show that the train of thought starts off with God, and then it becomes a little bit random by knowing that God himself is unformed, and that unforming is kind of sweeping over the water, and the there, if something's sweeping, you know it's going to be there, and so it's there. And there, to be there, you can see that there's something there. The light shines on the there from the darkness, that God created the light. He called the light day, and that day being the interval between evening and morning, or morning and evening, that's the first day. And then from that expanse, in the midst of the water, that it may separate water from water. So the tohu bohu, the unformed chaos, is being expanded, and even that's expansion is going to be expanded into the expanse called sky. It looks like the sky, and there is the sky. So the there-ness, where the light comes from, which shines on the other things like the rocks and the earth, through tohu bohu being formed into the earth, that is going to be the idea of there-ness. What is so now the sky, and what is said is the sky. So the saying is sky, and therefore God lets it happen, that his saying sky makes it so that his saying light from the sky makes it so. The letting happen, he says, let, the verb let, the water below the sky be gathered into one area, that the dry may appear, and therefore there's the earth. So the earth, its earthiness is so be it, and the earth is limited by its seas, which are formed by God around its rockiness. So pretty much, I'm going to stop for there, but that's the train of thought, the chain between some of the ideas in the first part of this first chapter.